So question 6 says, again, use long division to find the quotient and the remainder. So I remember in long division, we have, say, if I wanted to divide, say, 7 into, 534, what I can do is go 7 into like 500 plus 30 plus 4 if I want to, and try to do it this way. So it's that if you do it this way, you kind of pick up on, what times 7 gets me close to 500. Well, if I ignore that 0, 7 times what gets me close to 50, that would be a 7. So 70 times 7 would be close to 500, because 70 times 7 would be 490. So if I subtract that, or change the sign and add, if you will, this would be a remainder of 10, which we now have to bring over here to this spot. And this gives me a 40. So then we have to go 7 times what gets me close to 40. Well, that would be a 5. 5 times 7 would be 35. But again, remember, we have to subtract. So in other words, I just change the sign and add, and that gives me a 5. And then I have to bring this 5 over to here, and this brings down bring that all the way down here. It's like a 9. So 7 goes into 9. That would be like a positive 1, or 1 times 7 is 7. And then that remainder would have been, change the sign, and I would have got a remainder of 2. But notice how these are all like terms, so it'd be like 76 with the remainder of 2. That's kind of how we know long division. So this kind of works very similarly. Is we're going to go x plus 2 into this 3x to the 4th. Notice how the x cubed term is missing, so plus 0x cubed minus 6x squared plus 6x minus 2 comes down. So long division is going to work very similarly. So again, we're just going to focus on the front end number, front end piece. So x plus 2 goes in all this. Well, let's try to figure out how it goes in all this. We just focus on the front end, the leading part. And we just ask ourselves, what times x plus 2 gives me, or just what times x gives me this 3x to the 4th? Well, I would need a 3x to the 3rd for that. So 3x to the 3rd times x does give me this 3x to the 4th. And then 3x cubed plus times the 2 gives me a plus 6x cubed. Notice how that 0x cubed is really important, because it gives me a placeholder, like zeros. So again, remember, to combine these together, we're actually subtracting, but to subtract, we can use adding the opposite. So if I just change the signs and add, this allows me to do the math a little bit more easily in my head. So notice how I'm going to get then this 0 is going to cancel, that's going to cancel out and give me this negative 6x cubed would come down here, because a 0 and a negative would just be a negative 6x cubed. So it's not a bad idea to bring the next term down, because since we have 2 terms here, we may as well have 2 terms here. So again, our focus is on what goes here that multiplies to an x that gives me this negative 6x cubed. I need a negative 6x squared there. Negative 6x squared times x does give me negative 6x cubed. So that looks good. And then we have to multiply the negative 6x squared times the 2, and that's going to give me a negative 12x squared. Remember, we're subtracting, so what we do is we come and change. So this turns into a plus, this turns to a plus, and we're going to now add. So these two zero out, and negative 6 plus the 12 gives me a 6x squared. So then the 6x slides on down next to that, since we need 2 terms. Now I'm focusing on this next spot. So what times x gives me 6x squared? since it's a positive 6x, I need to put a plus 6x there. 6x times x is going to give me 6x squared. And then 6x times 2 is going to give me this 12x. So then we're subtracting, so we need to change the signs. So this turns into a negative, and this turns into a negative. And then we're going to bring this down, which is going to give me a negative 6x, and this minus 2 is going to slide down as well. So I need to bring that down. So now we ask ourselves, what times x is negative 6x? Well, that would be a negative 6. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. And then negative 6 times 2 is a negative 12. So then remember, we're subtracting. So these signs have to change. And when we add, we're getting this 10. So our remainder is going to be a 10. So there's no more that we can do because that's now too small, because what times x gives me 10 is not going to be possible because this degree is too small. So you can't go below that because of the degrees. So the quotient is going to be the 3x cubed minus 6x squared plus 6x minus 6, and the remainder will be the 10. So notice how x plus 2 is not a factor of the function 3x cubed minus 6x squared plus 6x minus 2. So that's how we carry out long division.